Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest, former ECW superstar, the enforcer himself, Mr. CW Anderson. CW, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Thank you so much for having me.
What's going on in your world? What are you up to? It seems like MLW kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, they've been running strong for a few years now, and Brock and I have recently joined them in August, and with them for the foreseeable future. And everybody that has followed my career knows that myself and Steve Carino and Simon Diamond were, three of the MLW originals with the Extreme Horsemen, and helped put that place on the map with Dusty Rhodes and Terry Funk and Dr. Death Steve Williams. God, it sucks that those three aren't even with us anymore. Um, So really enjoying my time tagging with Brock right now and being at MLW. Uh, Recently got married last month, which I was extremely excited about. This is my fourth marriage, and this is the first one I've really been excited about, so to speak. um, and staying busy here in the Carolinas with AML, the AML wrestling with WrestleCade and all that. It's coming up in Thanksgiving, so there's a lot going on this year.
Keeping very busy. What do you think about the Rogue Horsemen? I know there's been a lot of talk online. Some people like the Four Kings name better. They don't like that name. But what do you think about the Rogue Horsemen, just where you guys are at?
We like the Four Kings. We had talked about Kings Four Kings. The Rogue Horseman is what that court wanted to go with it, and whatever court wants, we're going to run with. And it's we've been getting a lot of slack for being calling ourselves horsemen, and I get it. People are going to have their own opinions of it. I got slacked when I was an Extreme Horseman when we came out with that name, but that wasn't my idea. That was Dusty Rhodes' idea. With the original ones was myself, Steve Carino, and Barry Windham. We try to take this name and with respect, because when you think of horsemen, there's only one group you think of, and that's Brock's dad, Arn, and Rick, and Tully. In the beginning it was JJ, and then it went to Barry, who I thought was the best four horseman in my opinion. And then it had its own different people throughout the years. But we're making, I should say, the best with it, because people are going to be naysayers, and we're going to prove everybody wrong with it. And whether you call us the Four Kings, we're calling it. I've even said we're the Four Kings of the Rogue Horsemen, just like the Apocalypse. So that's what we're going to do, and it's been getting traction either way, whether you like it or you don't.
What do you think about the pairing? Everybody obviously love Bobby Fish. Brock is coming along, and obviously Gosling. So, what do you think about the just the group as far as
It
coming
is
together?
it's a very unique group. It was only 6 months ago that Bobby and I got introduced, and that was at the ECW Arena show, where they had like kind of reunion during WrestleMania weekend, and I wrestled Shane Douglas. That's the first time Bobby and I had ever met. August was the first time I'd ever met Brett. Great young guy. He's very smart for his years in the business. Usually it takes guys a lot longer, and Brett gets it. He and I spoke the very first time, and on the way home, I was telling my wife, well, fiance at the time, I was like, this kid gets it. And he's a man. He's not a kid, but that's hell, I'm old enough to be his dad to an extent. So that's the way sometimes I am. But he's a great guy. Bobby Fish, another great guy that he's so smart to this business. I listen to him talk, and there's things I learned from him. And Brock is finding his niche in this business, and Brock's got I wouldn't say he has a lot to live up to, but he has a huge shadow he's trying to get out from under. And whether people like it or don't, to that extent, he's got shoes to fill. And I always tell him, don't try to walk in your dad's shoes. Don't try to fill your dad's shoes. Bring your own. Make your own shoes. Make your own name as an Anderson, because that's what I had to do. Um, I've always gotten, I won't say compared, but got blasted for calling myself an Anderson. But through the years, I've tried to make the best I could and be the best Anderson I could. So Brock's still young in his career, like way young in his career. I think Brock's like 4 or 5 years in the business. So he's got such a long way to go. And he's already, he and I've been tagging for a year, and he's leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last year, because we're putting him in the right positions. Arn and I are getting him with the right people, because the only way you get better is to be around better people. And when I got to ECW, that's how I got better, because I was around better people. And that's what is showing on Brock, because now we're feuding with these guys at AML, the Dawsons, who've been tagging for a long time. We've worked different tag teams, and Brock he picks it up. He is a sponge.
Love Arn. I always talk to him and talk about different stuff, and he's like, "Hell, I'm not even a real Anderson." He's like, "So if somebody else, like, who am I to say, Anderson?"
That's what people, and I understand. Ole and Arn, they cemented the name Anderson in this business, and it was never my idea to even call myself an Anderson when I first started. It was given to me, and at the time when I first got in, I was still not even smart to it to an extent. So it wasn't until I got into business and got as an Anderson and got to learning how Arn was such a great worker and such a great mind, that I was like, okay, I said, I have a lot to live up to trying to carry this name. And I just took it a little different route, just made it a little bit more extreme. I was even doing some of that stuff before I got to ECW. So I still kept the grassroots with working the body part and slow and methodical and the viciousness of being an Anderson. But, you have to venture out on your own. And that's what fit best for me.
When you look at it, was it Pat Anderson? Was that the guy who you came up with and trained? And you
Yeah.
guys are NWA tag team champs together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pat was the one that give me the name in '93 when I first started. He met me at a show. The guy he was tagging with was either my age now or a little bit younger, and he was quitting. His name was Rocky, and Pat was looking a tag team partner at the time. Pat was in his mid 30s, and I was 23, 24, and he was looking somebody. And at the time, I just had a goatee and had hair. I looked more like the big boss man than I did an Anderson at the time because I was heavier. So he was like, would you want to be an Anderson? You got to change your, come up with a 3-letter name, because it was Ole, Arn, and himself, Pat. And when a old baseball coach of mine that was a manager in wrestling give me the name, said just use your initials and call you CW. That's kind of where it stuck, and where I started running with CW Anderson with Pat. And yeah, we were with NWA tag champs for 6 months, maybe 7 months. I don't remember the length, but I know they had folded one of their many times that they did afterwards, and we had to relinquish those belts.
Did Pat have any connection with Arn at all? Like, where did he get the Anderson name from?
From what what was told to me is they got it from Gene before he passed away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Gene's the only legitimate Anderson. He's the only
Right.
real Anderson. So he give it to him, and it was under the conditions that you can't job it out. You can't be one of these guys. You have to use it as an Anderson, respectful. So that was what was told to me when it was given to me. So as long as I've been wrestling, I've tried to treat it with the best respect that I can. It's almost like how I carry my last name right as to my parents. It's respectful to them.
It is funny, like, when you look at like history of wrestling, right? Like, Gene's really the only Anderson. Lars isn't technically an Anderson. Ole isn't. Arn isn't technically. It's just funny that people consider, like, no, Arn isn't, like, not technically. Really, Gene is the only real one. Yeah.
Right. Because Arn's been in this business forever, and that's what, when you think of Anderson, that's the legitimate, to me, is the first one you think of. Gene is down the line, so is Lars. It's Arn and Ole. That's the two Andersons you think of. And that's fine. That's a lot to live up to. Even though I didn't get along with Ole, the one interaction he and I had, I've always heard the stories of how Ole was grumpy and a bitter person. Until I met him, we didn't get along and didn't speak after that. So, and it wasn't until he passed away that I actually started watching more of his stuff, because I realized, me tagging with Brock, I am basically Ole now.
Yep.
Because that's what Ole did to Arn. Ole, took and molded Arn to make him the person he was, made him that complete wrestler. And to me, that's kind of my job with Brock, is to help him along the ways, to help, we're all going to stumble. We're all going to hit our head, but it's my job to detour those pitfalls as best as I can for now, and make him an even better Anderson. So when he goes out on his singles career, he can be ready.
I feel like people don't realize with Brock, when he debuted in AEW, that was really like his first match. Like, he was literally had no experience. Like, they kind of just threw him to the wolves already. So now he's finally getting the proper experience that he should have gotten before he got signed to AEW.
I didn't know this until he and I had gotten close, that was legit his first time wrestling was on TV, live. I mean, what a way to break into the business.
Crazy.
It's crazy. And now, and you know, that's the way from what you hear about how they're throwing him to the wolves. But now he is going about it the right way, and he's literally getting around the right people. I mean, MLW has so much great talent there. AML here has great talent, guys that have been in the business forever. I mean, our leader there, George South, you can't say nothing good things about George South. Whether you think George South ever did anything in this business, that man's a genius when it comes to wrestling and being able to call a match on the fly. And I've just been really happy and proud of the way Brock has learned. I said it before, he is legit a sponge. I will tell him things that his dad, it's hard being Arn Anderson and being a dad, because he can tell him these things. And is it Arn telling him or is it dad telling him? So
Right.
with me, I look at it as this buffer to where, hey, this sucked, this looked great, this needs to be worked on. And it's the same thing. I don't cut him any slack because I never got cut slack. And that's the only way you're going to learn to some extent is sometimes tough love. And like I said, Brock takes it in stride and runs with it. And, there's not many times I have to correct him on certain things. But because he's right there with everything, it's little minute things. And again, we've been tagging just a year. So he and I are starting to nail down being synchronized in our chemistry, and it's coming along. Guys we've worked with, man, you guys are a different tag team than a year ago because we're in sync now.
That's so interesting how you mentioned like you're the Oli role, right? Like how fast time goes by because I don't like it's obviously you're still in shape, but you don't think of CW Anderson as like the veteran necessarily, but it's like, oh my God, so many years have gone by. Yeah, you are Ole Anderson, you are the veteran. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like man, time goes by just like that.
Yeah, at least I'm not grumpy and bitter I have my own moments, but
Yeah.
I'm not that grumpy and bitter all the time. And it's hard to believe this is my 31st year. And, it does sting sometimes when I get called Ole because damn, have I really been in the business that long? And I still feel like I got a lot left in the gas tank, but at the other end, I'm still on the back nine of my career, so to speak. But hey, I'll take that in stride because at the end of the day, Ole Anderson was a hell of a worker.
He was awesome. Go back and watch it. Just so he was believable. He was real. Even his promos were like,
Yeah.
man, this guy he's not joking around. This guy's dead serious. Everything about him was very real.
You whether you believe it's that I forgot who said it, but whether you believe in wrestling or not, Ole Anderson made you believe what he's saying was the gospel because he didn't have to scream. He don't have to scream and raise his voice. Everything he said was dead serious. And you that whole thing taking it to the bank. When Ole got done, you're like, damn, okay, he meant every word he said.
Love Ole. I actually years ago I was booking a Horseman like reunion thing,
Mm-hmm.
and Arn said he goes, Ole's not going to want to do it, but he gave me his number. He goes, I'll give you. You can call him. You can ask him. He goes, I'm tell you what the answer is going to be. He goes, so don't get excited. Don't think he's going to do it. So I called and I said, oh, Arn gave me the number. Blah blah. Ole goes, F you. Not doing it. I have no interest. I don't know why Arn said that. Blah blah. But and it was like the exact thing that I thought was going to happen happened. He cursed me off. So then his wife called me back and she goes, I apologize. He's cranky. He's ornery, blah, blah. I said, you know what? I was like, don't even apologize. Like, that's exactly not what I wanted, but what I expected. And she just laughed. And she goes, okay, as long as you're not upset. I'm like, no. And I told Arn and he cracked up because I told you, so that I got the exact interaction I thought I was going to get.
Yeah, Arn asked me a few months ago, what I wanted out of this tag team and what my goal was. And it was the answer that I tell everybody, and I'm 100% honest. My goal is to make Brock a better wrestler. So, in my time with everybody, I want to leave the business better than I found it. And it's the same with Brock. I want to make him a better wrestler, and I want to be that mentor to him. I said, kind of like Arn, how Ole was to you. Arn goes, Jesus Christ. He said, you ain't going to get on him all the time and make him eat his broccoli when he don't eat it, does he? I started laughing. I was like, no, I'm not going to be that bitter and angry towards him at all. But it's been there's people you look up to in this business, and on my Mount Rushmore, there's only two, and I will take this to the grave with me. It's Bobby Eaton and Arn. Bobby was the one that I wanted to be when I got into wrestling because I wanted to be able to work a broomstick or Ric Flair and have a 5-star match. But Arn, just for his sheer overall of how he was in the ring general and his knowledge, and it was about a year ago. I'm in a 6-man. It's me and Preston and Brock, and Arn was listening to it. And I come up with this one little spot in the end that involved Arn. I said, Arn, what do you think about this, for your spot? He tweaked the smallest detail. And you can even ask Preston this, the smallest detail that I would have never thought of. And it was so simple, but it made the spot when it happened 20 times better. And I, of course, 100% agreed with him because he's Arn Anderson and he knows more about it than I do. And it made sense. And he walked off and I looked at Preston and Brock and go, I don't know a damn thing about wrestling. 31 years and I still don't know nothing, because it was something that was just the simplest. And that's what I am able to take is Arn can make sense of sometimes the clutterness that comes out of my mouth when I'm putting matches together.
To me too, it's funny. Like when people say like, "Oh, who's your favorite wrestlers?" I always I love Hogan. Even modern day, I love Bryan Danielson. I love Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner. But I always say Arn and Eaton. I love Arn Anderson. I love Bob Eaton. Something about them is like Eaton was just the smoothest guy, and Arn.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was like the best. Like I know Flair's awesome, and I love Flair, but it was like he was so serious. He wasn't yelling. He was Flair's backup. He would kick guys' ass if he had to take a beating. He would kind of take the beating, and like I don't know. Arn was always to me the most realistic guy.
Yeah, he made you believe it. He was Ric Flair's bodyguard. The whole enforcer gimmick, that was his job as an Anderson. And Bobby, Bobby was so smooth. Everybody, when you talk about Bobby, he never hurt anybody. He was light as a feather, but he could go with anybody. And that's what I loved about Bobby was Bobby had a little bit of flair, not Ric Flair, but a little bit of flair and charisma to him. But it was his work rate and the way he put things together. And it wasn't till about a year or so before he passed away. The guy, Bobby Thompson, Brian Thompson, that looks after him, or was, taking care of Bobby. He told Bobby, he goes, you're CW's idol, right? And Bobby had no idea that I idolized him like I did. And I tell this story, the first time I got to meet Bobby was at ECW Arena when Heyman was bringing Bobby in to work with me, a program, because Paul knew I was a mark for him. And the first time I walked up to try to introduce myself, I looked through the curtain and saw him sitting there with Paul, and I had to go in another room and collect myself because I was hyperventilating. I was like a little girl meeting, their favorite pop star.
Wow. Yeah.
I was hyperventilating that bad because it was Bobby Eaton. And that's what he meant to me, and that's what he still means to me.
Man, he's just so smooth, so good, so awesome. I did another signing I did was all Midnight Express. So it was Cornette, Lane, Condrey, Eaton. We had all the Midnight Express together for this little mini reunion, an autograph signing, and Cornette did a show afterwards where he's just doing like a one-man show, whatever. But I go, the best guy here is Bobby Eaton. He's the best. And Cornette's like, yeah, he's in the best. Bobby was like so humble. He's like, I don't want to hear it. I'm not. I don't like. He was just like he want no praise, even from me, the fan, or from Cornette, who's like his lifelong friend. He wanted no praise. He goes, nope, Jimmy's the man. To focus on Jimmy. It was so humble of him. I was like, wow. I was like, no. I was like, you're the best, man. I was like, come on.
That's what I got today. When I was at Walmart doing my shopping this morning, a guy recognized me, and he's a young worker in the business but he recognized me and he started talking to me. He's like, CW man. He said, you're a legend. You're a legend in this business, in this area. And I wouldn't accept it. I was like, no, I don't look at myself. I said, I'm just me. I'm just a simple guy that, worked his butt off and just got a good break at the right time. So I see how when Bobby was, you call him a legend, and he never took that because he didn't look at himself like that. And I don't either.
It's funny when me and Cornette were like pumping him up. He walked out of the room. He wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, "Come on, Bobby, stay in here. What are you doing?"
The first time when we squared off at the arena, we were trading punches, and I was told the next day by RVD that Paul made everybody watch the monitor when Bobby and I squared off. He said, "I want you to watch the two best punchers in professional wrestling go at it." And man, that was such an honor hearing that. And RVD goes, "It's true, CW." He said, honestly, for me, he says, your punch is way better, which means a lot coming from RVD, but even, as much from Paul, having everybody watch us, the guy that I idolize, they consider me in even the same league with him with punching prowess.
Yeah, I love that. You obviously had a great punch. I know I love that Bobby Eaton. That punch was so good.
Right, yep.
Yeah. Is that where you kind of took it from too? Like you were getting it from Bobby?
I did in the beginning. I did the whole snap, but then I was watching. I think I was watching Scott Hall one day punch, and the way he was kind of rounded off, and I took it a little bit further and a little bit better with being able to hide some of the secrets of it with my punch. And it never hit me how good it was until Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker one day told me, he was watching one of my videos. He says, CW, he says, hands down, you have the best punch in wrestling. He says, you're wasting it punching people more than one time. And that, he said, and that's what I've stuck to. I only punch people one time with the left, and I've gotten a pretty damn good right. You know, I'm very ambidextrous. My super kick is very good. You know, I've had people tell me it's the best in wrestling, but my right punch is almost as good as my left. And that's what I take pride in, is my strikes and things like that of being, you know, I've always told people, and I hear this, if you're gonna do something, try to be the best at it. If you can't be the best, it's what they used to say at the power plant and other people. You can't punch as good as CW, don't punch, because that's what people are going to compare it to.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
that's what I try to be the best. You know, I try to have the best spine buster, the best super kick, best punch, right or left. And I've always thrown my name in the ring when it says there's nobody in the wrestling that can punch with both hands as good as I can. Nobody. I don't give a damn if you're on TV or not. And put that to the test with anybody, and they can put theirs out there. So, but I can punch just as good as on my right as I can on my left. And I don't think nobody else in wrestling can do it.
And hey, Scott Hall, not a bad guy to kind of emulate with the punch, because
no.
There was a guy named The Rock that copied his punch. So
yes,
obviously
I kind of got it off The Rock too. Yep.
Yeah. Right. I mean, The Rock said literally, he said he saw Hall like throwing a punch. He's like, I'm not going to do that Rocky Maivia, that corny thing. I'm going to start punching like this guy.
Mm-hmm. It reminded me of my baseball days, to where when I threw a baseball, it was a complete follow through. And it's the same way that with a punch. It's a complete follow through with my punch. And if you ever watch me punch, right before I wind up, I always grab like I have my hand in a glove. It's a tick I have, just my timing and stuff. I always grab my hands like this before I do it. Even though I was a right-handed catcher, I punch naturally with my left hand.
Wow, that's weird. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I know, obviously, the baseball thing. Obviously, I knew you had a good baseball background. That's intriguing. That's why is that? Is it literally ambidextrous? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm ambidextrous. If anybody from North Carolina is listening to this, is old enough, they'll remember the famous Charles Shackelford interview on ESPN when he said Coach Valvano was teaching both hands, so he's amphibious. So I'm amphibious.
Right.
That actually really happened. But I remember I don't know how I remember, when I was 4 years old, I was right-handed coloring, and I switched to the left hand and was coloring. I remember I was coloring a Flintstones coloring book. How crazy is that? And I remember switching. So I throw right-handed, bat right-handed, right left-handed, punch left-handed, kick left-footed. My brother does the exact opposite of everything. Whatever I do with my right, he does with his left, and whatever I do with my left, he does with his right. He's complete opposite of me. It's weird like that.
Wow,
but
weird.
I'm very ambidextrous with both hands.
Yeah. I remember growing up, I did a lot of things lefty, but then it was just stuck with the right, and then I just became I was right-handed. So yeah, wow, interesting that it never kind of went away from you. You could do both.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it wasn't until in the years in wrestling that I started learning, started throwing the right-handed punch, where I started getting comfortable with it. And again, going back to my baseball days of being able to, like throwing a baseball.
You mentioned the power plant. Obviously, WCW power plant was a huge kind of, before the Performance Center, it was like the huge ground for football or for wrestling. Almost like for football, you had, training camps and things like that. The original Performance Center to me was the power plant. How the heck did you get into WCW power plant?
I went there in February of 97, 98. Let me think. 98, February of 98. Two of my students that I trained, one was Lodi, and the other his wrestling name was Toad, Curtis White. He did a little bit at the end of WCW. He worked at Frog with PG-13. So they they got invited from Pez Watley, because they saw Pez on a show, and Pez invited them down, and they went through that whole tryout. So after about a year of them being there, Lodi calls me one day, and he said, CW, he said, you're basically spinning your wheels on the independence in North Carolina. You can't go any higher. He said, get ready, get yourself in shape, and come to the power plant. So he told me about what the power plant consisted of, squats, things like that. He forgot to tell me about the damn push-ups. But so for like 3 months, all I did every day when I got home from work was squats. Those free Hindu squats. So that's kind of how I got there. And then I went through those 3 days. I remember 35 people started with us and 4 finished. It started on a Wednesday, And it was
Wow.
like from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday was a half a day, even though we didn't know it was going to be half a day. But at the end of the day, you've done about 1,500, 2,000 squats, 600 push-ups. They had taken you outside and run you sprinting, all kinds of different sprints, forward, backwards, that karaoke's crisscross sideways for about an hour. They did that every day. It was just basically just to blow you up, just to see who was going to get through it. And if it wasn't for Toad, I would have never made it. It was 2 or 3 times I was going to quit because I just mentally, I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. But you don't realize how hard your body and how far your body can go if you just keep going. And it was the best 3 days I'd ever done, even though it was the hardest because it legitimately changed my life. Because once I got in the power plant, I kind of got under Sarge's wing. Pez Watley took me under his, Mike Winter, and they just fine-tuned all the crap that I had learned bad on the independents and molded it into what got me my job at ECW.
Now, to me, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but they know you're in the business. They know you've been in the business for 4 years, right until that point doing the injury.
Mm-hmm.
Is that necessary for you to do all that other stuff? Because you're already a wrestler. You know what I mean? Like, why are they making you do that stuff? Is it literally just to see who'll quit?
Yeah, just to see who quit. It's the get the couch potatoes, the ones that said they can't, that anybody can do this. And I said 35 people started at the end of the first day. There were 6 left, and 2 quit the next day. And it's just, and I don't care. Bodybuilders came in there, muscle guys. Every shape and size was there, and it was just they want to see who had the heart. And they knew I was Lodi and Toad's boy, but Sarge didn't take it easy on me at all. I didn't get any special treatments or any benefit. The only benefit to being in the business beforehand is when they got us in the ring, they made us run the ropes, and they didn't teach you how to run the ropes. You were jogging in place, you slid in, hit one rope, come back and hit the other one, did a front flip, and you went out and did it to the next ring. There was 3 rings. It was a circuit, and that was the only benefit. Was being able to learn how to run the ropes, and they got you down there to show you how to. Well, they didn't show you how to bump. They just, this is a bump, do it, and they were making guys hit it 5, 6, 7 times, and me one time, and I hit it perfectly. Sarge got me out because he already knew how to do that. But that was the only benefit that I got out of it.
Yeah, it seems like, man, they want guys to quit. Because remember Dave Bautista, the infamous story, he was at the power plant and he quit. And he wanted nothing to do with wrestling after that. And obviously, WWF ended up scooping up, became a huge star. And obviously, we see where he is today. But it's like, wow, they don't care who you are or like what you're doing. They want to bust you.
One of the ones I only think they carried through it was Paul White, Big Show. Right. I heard they were literally helping him through the tryout and wouldn't let him quit because, of course, look at him. He definitely has something to offer in this business. But guys my size, there was guys in my class that looked like Batista, and they didn't care.
Yeah, because Hogan, right? Hogan was the one that's like, send this guy down to the power plant. Imagine if Hogan sends him down, the guy quits. Hogan, but what the hell happened to that guy sent down there? So, yeah, it's got to be kids' gloves, big time.
Yeah.
Man, just crazy that they would do that at the power plant. But, like, obviously, the guys who make it. You know what I mean? They end up staying with it, which is awesome.
Yeah, the guys that were not in my class, but the ones before it was, Elix Skipper, Lash LaRue, Mark Palumbo, Chuck Palumbo, Mark Jindrak,
Mike Sanders.
Mike Sanders, yes, that was the other one I was thinking of. There's the ones, Mike I got close to, Elix I got close to, Lash, and I just reconnected with Lash not too long ago on Twitter. Those, all those guys. I wasn't that close with Chuck or Mark. I knew them, but it seemed like I just hung around those guys a little bit more. I was Elix Skipper's first match in Kentucky. We did a power plant show in Kentucky. I was Elix's first match. But all great guys. Everyone went through those 3 days of hell, and that's another. Lodi did too, and that's another thing we can hang our hat on is we made it through those 3 days of hell.
It's funny, like when you look at WCW, right? If you're in the power plant, are you technically in WCW, or do you not have a contract and you're just kind of hoping to get the contract? Like, how does that work with being in WCW?
I was one of the few that was not on contract. A lot of those guys were. I think it was like a 75 a year deal. And they didn't, even if you were on contract and you were at the power plant, they didn't give a damn. Like that. What was that damn security guard they had up there that used to be a cop? Do you remember his name? If you said it, I'm drawing a blank. Doug Dillinger. Yes. He didn't give a damn about us. We go to the SmackDown show, not SmackDown, but he'd go to the Nitro or Thunder tapings. If it was close by, he would kick us out of the locker room, say we didn't belong. We're part of the power plant. I don't give a damn. That was the first time I ever met Norman Smiley. he kicked me and a couple other guys out. I think it was Ilix and my buddy Toad, and uh, Norman stayed out back with us for about an hour and just stood there and talked to us. Just talked to us. And ever since then, Norman's been over with me just because he did that. He didn't know who I was from Adam's House Cat. And he stood up there, took an hour out of his time and talked to us.
Awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So you're just hoping to get that, like, you're like, come on, I'm here, sign me, right? I want that deal. I want that contract. And you're just kind of hoping, wishing, praying, if you will.
Yeah. It got to a point where Sarge was so busy in one ring, he'd have those other guys come in the ring with me and me show them things and teach them things.
Wow.
I'm sitting there training, helping train guys as well. And I'm like, shit, I'm the one that needs being trained and fine tuned. But there was just some things that I was showing those guys, which I didn't mind. It helped me learn too. I always tell people, that are in this business that if you want to get better, be around other people at training schools and stuff and help out. You learn how to explain things and you learn why things are like they are. And it helps you understand the business a lot more.
Did they ever tell you, like, hey, you're about to be signed, or you're going to be signed, or you're just like, nope, I'm going to ECW just because I'm not being signed?
They came down, JJ Dillon and Paul Warndorf came down to the school one day. There was about 30 something people in class and they didn't know what they had. So they want to see all the workers, all the guys work a match. So everybody paired up. Me and Toad paired up. Brad Armstrong was there, standing on the ring, watching everybody. And me and Toad were the last match. And he and I worked on the indies a lot. So we were basically doing ECW style matches because we were big marks for ECW. And we got done with our match and popped all the boys. Brad Armstrong, man, his first words out of his mouth, guys, that was effing awesome. That's some straight ECW stuff right there. Is what he told us. JJ Dillon and Paul Orndorff walked up to me and told me that, my wrestling was okay, but WCW is a marketing company and I really didn't have a look for them to market. That they didn't ever think I would go far in this business or make it because I didn't have a look. But, my wrestling was just okay. That was like a dagger to my heart. And yes, looking back on it now, I wasn't in the best shape. I was 240, 245, 250. And then when Toad got a tryout at ECW, I just rode with him that day because that put a sour taste in my mouth at the power plant because I was going down 3 days a week. Some days you didn't even get to train because one day Sarge was working out with somebody, like Goldberg would come in there every now and then and be with Sarge. And every Monday they would be painting the Nitro and Thunder canvas in the other ring. So you only literally had one ring to work out in with 15, 20 guys. So it got frustrating being there. And then when I got told that, it was just a dagger to the heart, so to speak. And when Toad got his tryout, he drugged me to that show in ECW with him. And thank God he did because that's where I got my job at that night.
Man, that's just one of those things where it's like WWE probably, I know they say what they say, but they probably could have signed you because obviously you're on ECW and you're going to be in ECW and you're going to be on TV, right? I mean, like they could have, should have, would have. I mean, but I guess it worked out for you.
Yeah, it did. It worked out for the best. I ended up becoming, getting it once I got to ECW and like, yeah, man, I belong here. WCW wasn't for me. WWF wasn't for me, but it felt like I belonged at ECW because, we're all, and when you hear us talk about ECW, all the originals, you hear talk about the family atmosphere, and I'm really big on family. So I enjoyed being there. I actually loved being there, missed being there every day, and got my tryout. When Paul saw me in the ring working out, he gave me a match that night. I tagged with Vito LaGrassa, Skull Von Crush, and we worked Danny and Roadkill, who I'm still close to this day. Danny and Roadkill, that is. And Paul had him hit 3 finishes on me to pin me, and it was kind of it was one of those. He introduced me to him. Welcome to ECW, and it was just because that Toad drugged me down there, and I didn't even want to go. I want to stay home. He drugged me down there. I got in the ring because Nova was running the tryouts, and I was there seeing Steve and Simon Diamond, who I were good friends with back from the Carolinas. And Nova got me in the ring and happened to work out, and it just kind of took off from there.
When you look at it, right, one door closes, another opens, and almost immediately. It's like, man, WCW is not using me. They're kind of, what I mean? Like I should be signed there. This makes no sense, but I'll go down here and boom, you're already working, you're ready wrestling.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome, like how that can change. Your fortunes can change just like that.
Paul's always been a genius in seeing talent. We always call ourselves the island of misfit toys because if you look at all of us,
Yep.
There wasn't many of us that were bodybuilder type. You know, at the time, that's what you had to be, was a bodybuilder, 6'3", 6'4". And most of us were just like everyday looking guys that could wrestle. And Paul was a genius at seeing talent. I mean, he still is. So he saw something in me, and it worked out. He put his faith in me. And, one night we were in Chicago. It was kind of my first test. Well, my first test was Jerry Lynn in New Orleans. And I kind of shit the bed and screwed up 3 times. And Jerry told me later that Paul grabbed him afterwards and said, "I guess CW wasn't ready for you tonight, was he?" Paul said, or Jerry told Paul, he said, "Give him a chance." He said, "You give CW a chance, he'll be the most over heel in our company." And that, when he told me that gave me such motivation to do better. And then a few months later, we were in Chicago, and Dreamer comes up to me and says, "You got RVD tonight." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "You're fighting Rob for the title. It's kind of a match for you that Paul says if you do great in this match, you're going to go far in this company. But if you don't, whatever." That's just how Tommy's sense of humor is.
Yep.
So I was so nervous working with RVD, and we had such a good match. He loved it. Fonzie loved the idea. And in the back, Paul grabbed me and hugged me, and he had me like this, and he goes, "That's what I'm talking about. I knew you had it in you. Great match." And like slapped me on the back. And again, hearing Paul Heyman tell you that is all the confidence in the world.
That's great. Obviously, he likes what he's seeing. How quickly, when you were there, does he say, like, "I want to do like a new dangerous alliance"? Like he wants to make you the Arn, and then Wiles is going to be the Eaton. And like, how quick does he say that, or is that not something that he brings up to you? Like that's part of his plan.
That was something that was really he never brought up. When the Dudleys left, Lou and I were close because we rode the road together. Me and him, Jack Bittner, and Steve Carino. We were a clique with Tommy and Franny. And we were sitting I'll never forget, we were sitting at the Dungeon. And anybody that's in wrestling knows where the Dungeon is. It's a bar, and it's a hotel in Atlanta. We were sitting at the bar at the Dungeon. And Lou and I were talking. I was like, "What are you going to do from here on out since, Bubba and Deep are gone?" He goes, "I want to manage you." It's like, dude, I'd love that. I would love to be my manager, because Bill Wiles and I were already, tagging.
Yep.
Tommy threw us together just as a chance, and Bill and I clicked like instantly. And then Tommy, I don't know, I think Tommy come up with the idea, possibly, making Lou Paul Lee. And at the time, when you put that hat on Lou and that long hair, he looked just like Paul Lee.
Yeah.
So, and we got put together as kind of a comedy thing, as a rib on the Dangerous Alliance, and the original Dangerous Alliance. And then we started getting over, because Bill and I were a really good tag team. And Lou was great as our manager, mimicking Paul with the phone. It started getting over.
When you're there, right, and everything's going along, Heyman's not really booking as much here in '99 and 2000. It's more Tommy Dreamer, or like, what's the structure as far as the writing team?
As far as I knew, because I never really talked to Tommy much about that stuff. I don't know why I did. Looking back, I was just kind of naive and just kind of gullible and just going along with the flow. Tommy was doing a lot of it. There was a lot of times that Paul wasn't there for TV and house shows and stuff. So Tommy was booking all of that. It was Paul's idea to make me when Lance Storm was giving his notice. So that's why I broke away from the Dangerous Alliance and started doing a singles thing, and then started being Simon and Swingers enforcer. I remember it was Tommy's idea for me and him to feud, and it was his idea for the I Quit match. I worked Kid Cash at November to Remember, had a great match, and I come in the back, and Tommy was the first to greet me. And he goes, "CW, you're a hell of a wrestler, man. I can't wait to put you over on pay-per-view one day." And the next month, he put me over at Massacre on 34th Street. In the same building, when I first got to ECW and Bill and I were tagging, was where Tommy grabbed me. We were doing a dark match against Danny and Roadkill, and he grabbed me, pulled me to the side by himself. He said, "You're not getting this match because you're my friend. You're getting this match because you're a hell of a worker. I want you to go out there. I want you to try to steal this damn show in this dark match so you can stick it up the ass of those people at WCW that said you weren't good enough to be there."
Right.
And again, another motivation. You ain't got to tell me but once to do something like that. So I'm guessing it was It was Paul's idea to make me and Tommy's idea to give me that push and put me over. That was Tommy's gift when it come to making new talent. Because Tommy was a cornerstone, or he is a cornerstone of ECW.
Do you think that you were over before, but do you think that really got you over? Because you beat Dreamer. He's kind of like the lifeblood of ECW. He's like the man, even though not necessarily was never really champion, although once for like an hour or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's the man there. Without like he's the captain, he's like the leader. So beating him, does that put you into another stratosphere as far as being over? I mean, does that like make you main eventer?
I started getting, they did an article on me one time and on one of the wrestling magazines, and he said you can't spell ECW without CW. And it was talking about this mid card guy that every time you went to a show, no matter who was on the card, CW Anderson wasn't going to have a bad match. CW Anderson was always going to have a good match. And then I had a feud with Super Crazy that kind of started putting me on the map. And I remember at the ECW arena, Crazy and I had a match, and we went through a table on the floor on the outside. He beat me with a moonsault on the inside. And when he left, I got a standing ovation with a CF and dub chant. That's what they started saying, CF and dub. And Lou looks at me and goes, "You're over," when I did that. And I started getting that popularity because I remember they had this fan club that had pizza boxes with CW written on them. And at the end of our I Quit match, Tommy Boy told me beforehand when I quit, he said, "If we have a good match, I'm going to shake your hand. If not, then I'll just leave." So he shook my hand at the end of the match. And if you go back and look at or listen to the original tape, you can hear the people when they're replaying our match. The people are chanting CF and dub. I had 3,000 people on their feet chanting my name at the end of that match. It was all I could do to control my emotions standing in the middle of that ring because they were, appreciative of what I did. And they had started doing that a lot. And Tommy's idea was one pay-per-view to bring me out as his tag partner, but to turn me babyface. He said, because you're already damn near babyface here with the fans.
Do you think when you're doing that, right? Like you're over, like you're getting a pop. Do you think that's the way to go? Like I should go babyface, or should you turn on them and really, stab? Because then you'd be even more over. Because we
Yeah.
just started liking you. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. It's like a heel.
Probably the heel way would be to get more over because, again, you get in wrestling when you don't give the fans what they want, it makes them more intrigued. There's certain tricks and stuff we do that doesn't give them what they want. And that's part of it. And I think eventually I probably would have went babyface down the road because the next pay-per-view I was getting a TV belt and my contract, and then later down the road I was going to be the heavyweight champion. So I don't know if I'd had to beat Rhino for that or what, but who knows? It's great. It's a great armchair booking, but it also sucks that I was right there to grab that brass ring, and they showed it to me and took it away from me.
Is that Paul or Tommy that's telling you, "Hey, we have this plan for you"?
A little bit of both. After the massacre match, I'm changing, and Paul, as I get changed, Paul comes up to me and gets down on one knee in front of me and puts his hands on my knees and looks at me. He says, "I need you to be honest with me." Okay, what's up, Paul? Are you leaving me? I'm not leaving you. What are you talking about? He says, "I hear rumors that you're going to WCW." And I don't know what the hell he was talking about because I had no inclination. I told him, and I was one, and I'd still be like that if he was the one to give me my break. I am loyal to people like that.
Right.
I would not stab him in the back and go somewhere else because if I was all in about the money, I would have left and I wouldn't be wrestling today. I do it because I love the business and I'm loyal to the people that, give me my break. And Paul and Tommy give me that. So I was not going anywhere. Plus, I was very comfortable at ECW. I'm such an introvert. I don't like going anywhere where I'm uncomfortable. And I knew everybody at ECW. I loved being there. And I loved being part of that group. I had no plans on going anywhere else. I'd have been there. If they'd have kept running, I'd have been there till the doors closed. And really, I was there till the doors closed.
Yeah. Where the hell did he get that from? Where's he making that up to see what you would say? Like, hey, you're going to WCW?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Probably making it up because I never even talked about it to anybody. Never even had an inkling of going anywhere else. I didn't want to go to WWE. I didn't want to go to WCW. I didn't want to go overseas. I loved being at ECW. I tell people this story that every Thursday before I would leave out of town, I'd go see my mom at her shop. My mom's a hairdresser, and I'd go see her, tell her goodbye, and I see her when I get back. I said, "It's time for me to go to work." And this weekend, she's like, "You're not going to work. You're going to see your second family." she know I didn't consider ECW like work. That I loved.
Right.
They were my second family.
That's great, though. I mean,
Yeah.
what do they say? If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, like that kind of
Yep.
thing.
I loved being at ECW. Loved being in the ring with those guys. Everyone. Mike Awesome was the only one I ever had an issue with, and it turned out I had an issue with him up until the day he passed away. But everybody else loved being in the ring with them. It's one of those. Hey, we even joke about this. One more time. Let's have one more time in the ring together.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you don't seem like the ECW guy as far as like they're nuts, they're party animals, they're going to do all this hardcore crazy. You don't seem like that type. You know what I mean? You seem much
I
quiet,
wasn't.
reserved.
I am very. I don't party. I'll have a beer every now and then. Even today, I didn't drink back then. It was an every now and then thing. There were times where Balls Mahoney would come up to me and put a soma in my mouth. I remember one time he walked by. He said, "Open your mouth." I said, "What?" He said, "Open your fucking mouth." So I opened my mouth and he put this pill in my mouth. I said, "What is that?" He said, "A soma," and kept walking. I took it right out and threw it in the water. I didn't do drugs. Don't do drugs. The clique I was with, which was Jack, Steve, Lou, Tommy, Franny, we weren't partiers. We just hung out, went and got something to eat. Now we would run your ass off the road when the red light at Krispy Kreme come on. But that was about it. That was about as exciting as it got for us.
Yeah, because I always think that's like CW fit in well with ECW, but like personality wise, like did he fit in well because he's not one of those guys like Balls and Axel that are doing all that crazy stuff.
Everybody had their own cliques. Everybody, you had the guys that went out and chased women, the guys that partied like that. And then there was a group like us that didn't do anything, just would go to a restaurant at the next town over, eat, get to the hotel in the middle of the night and get some rest and get up and do it all over again. That was our thing. We weren't partiers at all. It's still, like a WrestleCade weekend, we'll go and drink a couple beers here and there at the Marriott across the street and hang out with everybody. But at a certain time, it's time to go back to the room and just sit in there and just hang out with ourselves, so to speak, and enjoy each other instead of being around all that. That's just not my style. My wife is the same way. Even though she's young, 29 years old, her soul is my age because she's asleep before I am at night, and she does not like partying and all that. She's an old soul.
So ECW, like you said, you beat Dreamer in that match at Massacre. The I Quit match comes at that Hammerstein at Guilty as Charged 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's going to be a huge jumping point for you too, because you're in basically a huge main event match at Hammerstein on pay-per-view. I know you end up losing the I Quit match, but still, that was huge and huge for you because, like you said, that was probably another stepping stone if ECW wasn't close. You were getting launched up the card.
Yeah, that was, it's 20 something years later, and that's still the match I'm most known for.
Yeah.
And how iconic is it that I had that match on my 30th birthday,
Wow.
January 7th, 2001. You go back and look at the video, and there's one guy that always give me shit at the Hammerstein, and he's talking shit to me. And you see me put my arms out like this, and I'm saying something to him, and he starts laughing. And I was like, "How are you gonna give me shit on my 30th birthday?" That's what I said to him, and he's like, he claps. He's like, "You're the man, C-Dub," and kept it moving. I was told before that match that it was very hard to do. It's like, "Man, we hope you have a good one, but I quits are hard to do." So I watched the one that everybody refers to when they talk I Quit, and that's Magnum and Telly. I watched it over and over and over again. And we didn't start putting that match together until the show started. We tried to, barbed wire was supposed to be the finish across my face, not the strap around the table. And there was no barbed wire on the truck. Lou, myself, and Chili Willie walked around downtown all day trying to find barbed wire. None of the stores had it. We finally found it on somebody's chain link fence in front of the garage, and we run back and tell the musketeer where it's at to go cut it off. Don't get caught, but go cut it off. And this fool goes, and I don't know how he found it, but he didn't find barbed wire. He found razor wire. He brought that back in a trash bag, and he goes, "Here's your barbed wire, CW." And I open it up, and it's this old crusty ass razor wire. And I was like, "Tommy, you're not putting this around my head and across because it was supposed to go across my eyes." So when you see it in the match and it's a perfect circle, he made that circle and was like, "Well, you can just spine buster me on it."
Wow. Damn.
Yeah.
And where the hell did the musketeer find that? That's so funny. Like you tell him where to find it, he finds a completely wrong thing. Yeah.
We told him go down this many blocks, take a left, and there's a chain link fence that has barbed wire on it. Cut it off. Where he found that at, I have no idea. No idea.
Do you consider that the best match of your career? I know most well known, but do you consider it the best?
I don't know if it's my best, most well known. Absolutely. Masato Tanaka and I had one in Tokyo. More people, and Carino, who was ringside, he was seconding me. Him and Loki and Brian Kendrick Spanky, they were seconding me, and they both said that was way better than my I Quit match, my match with Tanaka.
That was for 0-1?
0-1. Yeah, it was a house show for Tanaka. I forgot what champion was Tanaka at the time, but they consider that was probably one of my best matches. The way I feel, I wish I could find the video of it if there ever was one. So I don't know what would be my best match, but that is one of them.
It's crazy. Like ECW, I mean, you kind of get the inkling that it's closing, but we don't really know as fans that it's closing. Obviously, you as the wrestler, did you have an inkling that it was getting close to the end?
Oblivious.
Wow.
There was talks about it. Even the last show, and when we did in Arkansas, we were riding back, and there was some, Franny or Tommy were saying, "This is it. I can't believe this," and some of us still had hopes. I was one of those guys because, man, this is ECW. ECW can't close. It'd be like WWE going out of business the way I look at it. It'd be like WCW going out of business at the time. Damn, look what happened. Never thought it would have went out of business. And Paul never told us. Never. The way we found out, it was when he showed up on Raw commentating with Jim Ross. That's how we knew. And when I saw him on there, it was a dagger to all of us. Because he didn't tell us. He didn't say a word. There was allegedly him when he was telling us that he was out there trying to get us back on the USA Network. It was told to me, allegedly, he was out there. And I got to say allegedly, because now I got in heat for saying it happened. But the higher ups told me he was out there filming the movie Rollerball, allegedly. And I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows? There are so many times that he lied to us, and we caught him in lies, but you just don't know what to believe with him. At the time, bitter, angry, pissed off. I just wish you'd have told us, you were our boss, you were our leader. Just tell us. We're grown men. We're grown women. We can handle these things. But I don't hold any ill will in towards him. And if I'd see him today, I'd give him a hug, because that man literally made me. He put CW Anderson on the map. Steve Carino opened the door for me. When I got in there, Steve vouched for me. And I told Paul, I said, when you give me the football, I am going to run with it. And I did. It's the way I felt, that I ran with it and did the best I could as an Anderson.
The interesting thing with Paul, I like him, and obviously, legend in the business, all this stuff. Story tends to change. You know what I mean? Like the story's never exactly. So it's like, oh, I wasn't filming Robo, I was doing this, or this guy's full of crap. The story never is consistent. So it allegedly, I believe what you're saying and where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like, just because
my
his
story's
story
never changed. My story has never changed. It's been the same, and it's not. I hear this from higher up, and it's funny that we did these Legends of Extreme interviews with Mike Johnson, and we're sitting there one day, and it's me, him, and New Jack, and I think, Roadkill's beside me, and New Jack starts telling that about him filming Rollerball and him being out there not saving us, and Mike just starts laughing. He says, "CW, isn't that funny?" New Jack had no idea that Paul went after me on Twitter after somebody posted that. 7 years later, 10 years, whatever it was, that I made these allegations or said this, and he's finally going to speak out against it. But New Jack said it, and there was nothing ever said about it.
I remember that Heyman went nuts about it for some reason, but only said CW Anderson is wrong, and that's not true.
He only attacked me. He didn't attack anybody else that ever said it. The damn sure didn't attack New Jack.
Yeah. Yep. Weird. Very, very strange. When you get back to WWE or really go to WWE, I know you had some dark matches, Masters and Spike, and a bunch of matches along the way. When they do the new ECW, is that Paul bringing you in, or is that Shane, or is that Vince? Who brings you into WWE when they do the new ECW?
Dreamer calls me one day and goes,
"Oh, Dreamer, okay.
Dreamer, give me the call," and goes, Tommy Dreamer, he goes, "What are you doing?" "Nothing." He says, "I tell you, WWE wants to sign you." I said, "Shut up," because they didn't sign me when ECW folded. Why would they sign me now? I wasn't tall. I wasn't in shape at the time. He goes, "We're bringing back ECW." He says, "We're going to start. You and our feud's going to pick back up. It's going to be just like it was when it closed. Me and Paul are in charge. They don't have anything to do with it. They just own it. And we're going to be running our little buildings again. It's going to be just like it used to be." I'm like, "So I don't have to go to Ohio Valley?" "No." Okay, it's going to be just like it was. You and Paul are in charge. Yes, and that was the only way I would sign. And once I signed and got in there after that very first night at the ECW arena, when I worked Sabu, everything changed after that. And it was one of those I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Francine and I, we would look for ways to escape, look for ways to get out of the building if we weren't working so we could go to the next town because we didn't want to be there. It was miserable. It was a miserable place being at WWE at the time because they just used ECW. One of my good friends said to me that was one of the cruiserweight champions there, I hope he's not bringing ECW back to bury it because he wants his product to look better. Because at the time we were getting traction, you know, people were starting to talk about ECW more than WWE. And that was one of the reasons they brought it back was to try and bury it. And that's when he put all his guys in there because it was never, to me, it was never ECW. It was like a Disney version, so to speak.
Yeah, that didn't actually turn out. I know obviously Vince probably says one thing to them and then it ends up being something else. You know what I mean? Like Vince probably tells Dreamer, yeah, it's going to be you and Paul, pal, you know, and then it doesn't turn out to be that at all.
No. Yeah, he took control of it. It was a miserable place to be. I, you know, did get to see those guys again, got to work with Stevie Richards a lot, got to work with CM Punk a lot, Shannon Moore, who I've known forever, got to work with him several times. But other than that, I was like on 1 week, off 1 week. I was loving those weeks that I was off because I did not want to be there. And then when John Laurinaitis called me on January 17th and said, you're going to have to release me, my first word was, sweet, thank you. He was kind of taken back. He goes, yeah, maybe, you know, down the road we can consider, you know, revisit about bringing you back. I'm like, no, thanks.
Wow. Not a good experience.
I said, can I go back to Japan? He's like, yeah, I know you did well over there. You like being there. Just don't go to TNA for 90 days. Won't be a problem.
Nice. So as we hit the wind down here, head towards the finish, CW, we could probably talk for forever about some other stuff, but what's coming up next? What do you got coming up down the pike?
Next weekend, Chicago, Illinois, Major League Wrestling. Brock and I are there. Then Thanksgiving weekend, we have WrestleCade. I don't know what we're doing on the big show, but Sunday we are doing Brock and I are ML tag team champs. Been tag team champs for 10 months now there. We have a tag team I Quit match against the Dawson brothers. If you haven't seen the Dawsons, you should see those guys. Those guys are some big dudes. Got a match, got an I Quit match with them. And then December, I think Brock and I think it's Dallas, Texas. Brock and I are with MLW. No, I apologize. January is Dallas, Texas. December is back in Queens. And I just found out today that Eric Bischoff's going to be there at the Queen show for Major League Wrestling. Yes. So things are picking up for Brock and I more than they already have. And we're both excited for it.
Very cool. Yeah, MLW's sellout streak too, by the way. So yeah, MLW's kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, they are, man. Court, love Court. He knows what he's doing. He's got some great guys working for him, some great talent. And I'm enjoying being back with Major League Wrestling. Been happy.
Where could everybody find you social media wise?
Everything is at ECW Anderson. Just think Enforcer CW Anderson or again ECW Anderson.
All right. CW. Thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, John. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate this.